So everybody knows that Auschwitz was the biggest concentration camp ever to exist. We all know that. Okay, the numbers of how many people were murdered in this site is from 1.1 million up to 1.63 million, 1.1 million. We'll never really know. Apparently, according to some calculations, 1,612,000 is a close number. Who were murdered here? 70,000 Polish intellectuals, leaders, writers, people that the Nazi regime considered as a danger to the Nazi occupation. 15,000 Russian war prisoners, 22,000 gypsies, and 1.5 million Jews. So we took the number. We took the big number. Most of it is for... And that actually tells you that it wasn't really meant to be a concentration camp until the Jewish aspect became part of the existence of the camp. Of course, Auschwitz is the German-Austrian word for Oświęcim. I don't think I pronounce this correctly, but you know, I'm Polish, but I don't speak Polish. Oświęcim. Okay. And
what does it mean?
And it was a very nice little shtetl, nice little village at the south of Poland. We'll see a map later. And of course, the ultimate order to exterminate the Jews came from Hitler. Interesting enough, and that works in the benefit of Ahmadinejad and the Iranians who try to deny the Holocaust, you will never find any written confirmation in Hitler's handwriting that he has given the order to kill the Jews. There are plenty of evidences and testimonies that he spoke about it and he gave the orders, but something tangible that you really can, you can't go to court with something like that. But the only real proof that Hitler was implicated in that was written actually in the night of the 3rd of May, just before Hitler committed suicide. And he wrote his last testament and will, and he was raving like a madman. He was a madman, from subject to subject in this statement. And then he dictates to one of the secretaries that was writing the paper, the Jews brought the fate upon themselves. Though my means were far more humane than they deserved. So, point is not about what he spoke, what he thought about humane or not humane. It's the fact that it says my means, meaning it implicates, and he signed that document in the presence of other officers. So we know for sure that it was him. Though, come on, we all know that it was his doing. He was talking about it in the Reichstag early in 1933.
What about the Nazi conference there? Wasn't he?
In Wannsee, he was never there. On August 15th, 1940, this is very shortly after the war started, and Minsk in Poland is already occupied by the Germans. This is Heinrich Himmler. It's not a good picture, but it's him. Heinrich Himmler is visiting in a morale boost tour at the front. And the following day, he is visiting the countryside of Minsk to watch an execution. It's very difficult to read from it, but it says execution of Jews and partisans. That's what it says on this piece of paper. And he goes out to the field and he's watching execution. Not that one, but something similar to that one. We have to remember this date, 15th of August 1940, because it was a date of significance, and we will get back to this later. The next step from how the order has been twisted is also to kill all the women and the children. Himmler tried to explain why is it necessary to execute the children. He said as follows: we cannot allow a generation of avengers to grow up. These children will grow up, they will take revenge, but then we have to get rid of all of them. So this is the next step, also the murder of women and children, and it's escalating very rapidly. For example, to show you how it changed so quickly, Einsatzgruppen A under Walter Stahlecker reported execution of 4,400 people, victims, on July 1940. 1 month later, on August, they have executed by shooting 38,324. That included the women and children, and they were already closer to Minsk, closer to the big Jewish populations. So you see the difference, how quickly everything has. This guy in the middle, this is Rudolf Höss, the first commanding officer of Auschwitz. He had a lot of experience working in concentration camps in Germany. In the spring of 1940, he traveled to take upon himself the task of being the commanding officer of Auschwitz. He found, when he got there, a very small camp, which before he got there was a Polish military base revolving around a stable. Very small place. And in his own testimony, he said the place was completely run down and destroyed. This was, okay, this is not a good picture. It's supposed to be the toilets, but it was all broken. Nothing really worked over there. So a quick plan was drawn. This is the, you see, Auschwitz, right here in the corner. This is the first plan to make it as a concentration camp, and it was a rather very small place. And the idea was to keep in there only the Polish political prisoners. But then something changed. Auschwitz, you have to know, is a very special economical, strategic location, which only came to play at the beginning of 1941. Auschwitz is very close to the Sol. Sol is the name of the river, one of the small rivers breaking from the Wisla, the main river of Poland. And in that area, they had natural resources of fresh water, lime, and above all, coal. Some of the richest deposits of coal in Europe were just nearby Auschwitz in Poland. And there was a company named IG Farben, you all have the name, which was very, here you see the center of the company in Dresden. Later it all burned down before the end of the war. But this IG Farben were working on formulas to use the fresh water, the lime and the coal to manufacture synthetic rubber and fuel, which was very important to the Nazi war mission. So they made an approach to Himmler and said, we would like to use Auschwitz as a labor camp for our industry, which is good for you, good for the army. So for the first time, before the end of at the beginning of 1941, Himmler came to visit and make an inspection of Auschwitz and to speak to Höss on location. And after a thorough investigation of the place, he ordered Höss to triple the capacity of the camp. The capacity was 10,000. When I said that 23,000 Polish were there, you know, it's the total number. So he ordered Höss to triple the capacity to 30,000 and to build up a factory for IG Farben, and from that point on, Auschwitz became an economical priority as a camp where goods and materials for the Nazi war machine will be manufactured by Polish slave laborers, and then the SS can actually sell it to the army, which was crazy. The SS was supposed to be working with the army, but this is how Himmler created his own empire. He was a very rich man because of that. And then the plans started to come, how to create something very special, and the idea was to create the Nazi, or rather say even the SS model city in the West. Sorry, in the East. This is Hans Friedrich. He was an SS officer, part of was one of the organizers and the executioners at the mass shooting of Jews into graves. And in his interview after the war to a TV series, and I don't understand how he wasn't executed for all this done. I can't figure out. He said that they were utterly shocked. He's talking about the Jews while they were gathered and marched into the woods. They were utterly shocked, frightened. You could do with them what you wanted. Try to imagine there is a ditch with people on one side and behind them soldiers. That's us. And we were shooting. And those who were hit fell into the ditch. Okay, I'll skip this picture. I don't want to show it too long. The woman that interviews Hans Friedrich is asking him, what were you thinking and feeling while you were shooting? And Hans Friedrich says, nothing. I only thought, aim carefully so that you hit properly. That was my thought. And the woman asks him, that was your only thought? During all that time you had no feelings for the people, the Jewish civilians that you shot? And he says, nein. No. And she asks him, why not? And he says as follows, listen up. Because my hatred for the Jews is too great. He didn't say it was too great. He says, present tense, is too great. And I admit my thinking on this point is unjust. I admit this. But what I experienced from my earliest youth, when I lived on a farm, what the Jews were doing to us, well, that will never change. That is my unshakable conviction. They didn't do anything, but the Nazi propaganda during the 30s, when he was a boy or young man, kept telling the Jews are, stealing from the farmers, cheating the farmers, all those lies about the Jews. And he was fed these lies. He was taught these lies in the bloody school. So that was his unshakable conviction. Brainwashed.
When was this interview done, Shmuel?
I think the 80s. 80s, 90s.
So he's passed away since then. I
so.
presume he looks
I
like
don't
he's
know.
in his 70s.
I don't know.
Where is he, do you know? Where was he?
Well, the interview was made in German, so apparently he lives in Germany. I mean, where else could he live? Or maybe Argentina. Okay.
Canada.
Yeah.
And one thing that
I think so.
that I remember very clearly whenever I read this passage, and being a musician myself, I hear the music of the voice. And what I heard in his voice was he was completely numb. I mean, I would feel sorry if I ran over a squirrel with my car, but he wouldn't feel anything. His voice is, it's like if you put him on a machine, you get the flat line, nothing. And I remember the voice of the woman interviewing her voice broke when she said to him, "Was in Gottes Name? What in God's name? The people you shot had to do with those people who supposedly treated you badly at home. They simply belonged to the same group." So she says to him, "What else? What else did they have to do with it, those Jews you shot?" And he says, "Nothing." He says, "Aber war uns sind wir Juden." For us, they were Jews.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like you said, it's the dehumanization of the person, and it's the same thing going on today in the Arab world. When all the propaganda that goes into schools in the Arab world and the things that are supposed to be changed, if you speak to some people in Syria and things like that, they'll come and say the same things to you. So not much things have changed.
How come it was
I guess
free?
this is one of the reasons that at the very beginning of the course this year and last year I told them, remember, not all Germans were Nazis and not all Nazis were German. I mean, I lived in Germany for a couple of years. I can't tell you I had a great time with these people around me, but I try to remember if I look at them and say, well, Germans, I'm going to do to them what they did to me. That makes me just as bad. So to put these things in perspective. But I don't know what to tell you.
How come he was free?
Most of, and you know, that's actually the most shocking aspect. Most of the officers who, I don't know about him, most of the officers from Auschwitz, SS officers that worked in Auschwitz, and they estimated between 6,200 to 7,000 officers, most of them were never tried. Many of them that were tried stayed in prison for 2 or 3 years. It's only the big fish that were hanged.
But didn't a lot escape to Argentina?
I have no information about this man beyond what I told you. And I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I was thinking maybe in the future make a lecture about Eichmann. The story of Eichmann. That would explain some of the things that helped people like this one escape and continue relatively normal life. I guess in his age now he has nothing to fear, but I don't think he lived without fear. Let's say between 45 to 50. I would assume. Anyway, I can't answer you that. I have no idea. But like I said, it's killing. It doesn't look a monster. Okay, I took this picture out of a very old film, so that's why it looks like that. We're going back to Auschwitz, and that's when the story becomes somewhat a little bit more interesting. I don't know if you know, but in Germany, in the Nazi Germany, there was a program called adult euthanasia. What did it mean? Early 1939, Hitler received a letter from parents that had a severely had a son who was severely retarded, or I don't like the word. What's the mentally ill, actually. I don't know, challenged. And they said he's a burden, or whatever. I don't know how a parent can write something, but they asked for permission to have him killed, murdered. There's no other word. And Hitler authorized that, and a German Nazi officer called Hans Buller, who was in charge on all the mail that was arriving in Hitler, he managed to get hold of this issue, and he devised a whole process in which mentally ill children will be executed. Later, it has expanded to adults too. Hence the name adult euthanasia. How did this system work? 3 doctors were given the papers. They never met the patient. They never discussed with another doctor. Each doctor separately was given a paper, a summary of the illness of this mentally ill person, and if they decided that he is to be executed, they marked the paper with a cross and signed, initials only, not full name, and passed it on. And if this man got 1 cross, he was okay. If he got 2 crosses, not to mention 3 crosses, he was murdered. So the Germans were getting rid of their own, okay, not good pictures, I'm sorry, getting rid of their own problematic people. And they had 6 centers in Germany, like what you see here is in Sonnenstein, a small town near Dresden. I think it's the north of Germany, where they executed these people. How did the execution was carried out? Inside a room like that. Reminds you of something?
Showers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing. With a shower head, and you see the pipes, connected to the outside into balloons with a carbon monoxide, and this is how they killed the people. But it was never considered at that time as a tool for mass extermination. So, doctors from the adult euthanasia approached Rudolf Höss in Auschwitz and asked him if he would like to use their experience in gassing and killing people to get rid of all the Soviet war prisoners that gave him troubles or he wanted to get rid of. And they also had their own reasons why they wanted wanted Höss to send them in for research reasons, whatever. And Höss agreed, and 575 people, prisoners, Soviet prisoners, were shipped to Germany, to places like Sonnenstein, to be gassed and executed. No executions in Auschwitz yet. Okay. And all that happened at the beginning of August 1940. August 1940. Very shortly after the German invasion into the Soviet Union. Okay. Around 2 weeks later, and we're going back to the 15th of August 1940, which I asked you to remember. This is when Himmler is visiting Minsk, and he's watching the execution. And after his execution, he's meeting with Arthur Nebe, the commanding officer of Einsatzgruppen B, if I'm not sure, B or C? B. And Arthur Nebe is giving Himmler a report. He says, Herr Reichsführer, we got a problem. Shooting civilians, close quarters, in cold blood. Some of our executioners are going nuts, are going mad. They can't carry on. We need to devise a better way to kill the Jews. A better way for us, not for them, never mind them. I mean, we only care for ourselves, he says. And Himmler understands.
Zyklon B.
Not yet. Not yet. It's amazing how this story develops. So Himmler agrees, and he is contacting this officer. His name is Albert Widmann, and he orders him to travel to Russia and to find other ways to get rid of the Jews, to exterminate the Jews. So Widmann traveled in his car, and behind him there was a big truck following him, loaded with explosives. What they did was simple. They took a big group of Jews, put them in a bunker or somewhere underground, put explosive, they blew the whole thing up. The idea was that the executioners do not have to see face to face the victims. But thank God we have no pictures for that. It was so gruesome. One of the things that were described in Israel after suicide bombers exploded in buses like the Zyklon Street or so, there were body parts on the trees. So, same thing happened here. So Lieutenant Widmann realized that's not going to work, because what's the difference if they see the person they shoot, or they have to pick up the hand later? Excuse me for being so gruesome, but that was the situation that we're dealing with. So this idea was rejected because to clean up the mess was too much. You all know about the experiment they did with gas coming from the exhaust pipe of cars. You all know that. But what you don't know, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marvin, what you don't know, how did the idea was even born?
Well, they used trucks. They were transporting troops.
How did they get the idea of using the gas of the truck from the exhaust pipe? You won't believe it. I dropped my jaw when I first read it. This guy, don't remember the name of the city where he lived in Poland. Okay, decided to go out to a concert or a performance. He decided to go out one night for a performance or a concert. So he got into his car The car was parked indoors, inside his garage. And the driver, he switched on the car, started the car, and he started the heating of the car, and he forgot something, whatever, and he went, whatever. Now, neighbor, for some reason, was very tired, he fell asleep. In the few minutes that the driver took to get back, inside the garage got filled with the fumes of the exhaust pipe. So he nearly died because of that. That gave him the idea to offer to use a gas of a car going out from the exhaust pipe all the way into the wall, like inside a socket or something, and to put prisoners inside and to gas them this way. It was his idea, because he nearly died in his own garage. Did you know that?
No, but I'm aware of the trucks that they would do that.
The trucks, because we have films. There's a famous film with this white truck with the red cross on it, traveling, and I was also criticized because to move the victims from place to place wasn't a good idea. Anyway, excuse me. Anyway, that's how it started. But again, it was too complicated to bring the car, put the pipes, and it takes a long time because you know even those days cars didn't make so much smoke to kill people so quickly. Then came the breakthrough, what we call the breakthrough. This man is Karl Fritsch. His job was, he was the deputy commander of Auschwitz. He was the deputy second in command to Rudolf Höss. Rudolf Höss went on a short vacation, and Fritsch walked by one of the barracks in Auschwitz where they kept all the dirty clothing with lice or whatever. And he said to himself, and that's his own testimony, his own words later spoken to Höss. He says, "I was thinking, we gotta bring the anesthetizers, you say, to clean up all those clothes before we distribute it to the new prisoners, because we don't want the new prisoners to work with lice because they're gonna jump on us." Okay, he picked up the what?
Disinfect.
To disinfect. Yeah, sorry. Okay. So he took the. So he called the order. He sent for the people in charge, and they brought the tins, and on the tins, the label was Zyklon B. This is the disinfection they used. They also used that to kill rats and mice and all kind of things. Then suddenly said, maybe we can get rid of those bloody Soviets using that thing. So what did he do? He gathered a big group of 600, I think 850, 900 Soviet prisoners that he anyway wanted to get rid of, into a place called Block 11. This was the most infamous block of Auschwitz. What you see here, this is actually a picture from after the war. You see the Israeli flag, actually, that's the Israeli flag. This is the wall that was used for executions. It was known as the death wall. That's where they shot people and executed them. So he took all those prisoners and he pushed them down into the basement here. They sealed and shut all the windows and threw in the crystals of the Zyklon B. Didn't really work. Part of them died, part of them were dying, part of them were unaffected. So he increased the dosage. In 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour maybe, they were all dead. When Rudolf Höss came back from his vacation, he went to him and he says, "Listen, I had an idea and I did so and so. What do you think about it?" Rudolf Höss in his testimony said that he felt relieved. Thank God. He didn't like the bloodbath of the shooting and in front of the wall or in the ditches. He said this is all too dirty. We don't have to see that. This way we just shot the Jews in the gas chamber and we kill them, and then we get other Jews, the Sonderkommando, to clean up the mess, and we don't even have to see it. What he didn't realize, that maybe he's not going to see it, but it is the beginning of the biggest bloodbath of the history.